track. And when you're shifting the gears, you're sweating on the
Sunflower Sutra by Ginseberg, 1955, in Berkeley. I walked on the banks of the Tin Can Banana Dock and sat down under the huge shade of a Southern Pacific locomotive to look at the sunset over the Box House Hills and cry. Jack Kerouac sat beside me on a busted, rusty iron pole. Companion, we thought the same thoughts of the soul, bleak and blue and sad-eyed, surrounded by the gnarled steel roots of trees of machinery. The oily water on the river mirrored the red sky. Sun sank on top of final Frisco peaks. No fish in that stream. No hermit in those mounts. Just ourselves, rheumy-eyed and hungover, like old bums on the riverbank, tired and wily. "Look at the sunflower," he said. There was a dead gray shadow against the sky, big as a man, sitting dry on top of a pile of ancient sawdust. I rushed up and chanted. It was my first sunflower. Memories of Blake, my visions, Harlem, and hells of the eastern rivers, bridges, clanking Joes, greasy sandwiches, dead baby carriages, black treadless tires forgotten and unretreaded. The poem of the riverbank, condoms and pots, steel knives, nothing stainless, only the dank muck and the razor-sharp artifacts passing into the past. And the gray sunflower poised against the sunset, crackly, bleak, and dusty with the smut and smog and smoke of olden locomotives in its eye. Corolla of bleary spikes pushed down and broken like a battered crown, seeds fallen out of its face. Soon to be toothless mouth of sunny air. Sun rays obliterated on its hairy head like dried wire spiderweb. Leaves stuck out like arms out of the stem. Gestures from the sawdust root. Broke pieces of plaster fallen out of the black twigs. A dead fly in its ear. Unholy, battered old thing you were, my sunflower, oh my soul. I loved you then. The grime was no man's grime, but death and human locomotives. All that dress of this, that veil of darkened railroad skin, that smog of cheek, that eyelid of black misery, that sooty hand or phallus or protuberance of artificial worse than dirt, industrial, modern, all that civilization spotting your crazy golden crown. And those blear thoughts of death and dusty, loveless eyes and ends and withered roots below in the home pile of sand and sawdust, rubber dollar bills, skin of machinery, the guts and innards of the weeping, coughing car, the empty, lonely tin cans with their rusty tongues alack. What more could I name? The smoked ashes of some cock cigar, the cunts of wheelbarrows, and the milky breasts of cars, worn-out asses, out of chairs, and sphincters, and dynamos, all these, entangled in your mummied roots. And you there standing before me in the sunset, all your glory in your form, a perfect beauty of a sunflower, a perfect, excellent, lovely sunflower existence, a sweet natural eye to the new hit moon, woke up alive and excited, grasping in the sunset shadow, sunrise, golden monthly breeze. How many flies buzzed round you, innocent of your grime, while you cursed the heavens of the railroad and your flower's soul? Poor dead flower, when did you forget you were a flower? When did you look at your skin and decide you were an impotent, dirty old locomotive? The ghost of a locomotive? The specter and shade of a once powerful, mad American locomotive? You were never no locomotive, sunflower. You were a sunflower. And you, locomotive, you are a locomotive. Forget me not. So I grabbed up the skeleton, thick sunflower and stuck it at my side like a scepter, and delivered my sermon to my soul, and Jack's soul too, and anyone who'll listen. We're not our skin of grime. We're not our dread, bleak, dusty, imageless locomotive. We're all golden sunflowers inside, blessed by our own seed, and hairy, naked accomplishment bodies growing into mad, black, formal sunflowers in the sunset, spied on by our eyes under the shadow of the mad locomotive, riverbank, sunset, Frisco, hilly tin can, evening, sit-down, vision.
Walking was always a funny thing for me. More often than not, I went around the corner and I ended up at the Empire, which is where I'd taken to drinking recently because they had just hired a new girl. She was cheap because she was inexperienced, but there was something about her skin I liked. She was pale. When you fucked her, you had the impression you were going to go right through her. So today was no different. I stopped by the Empire, had a beer, and also a shot of Red Meyer bourbon, and stared at the new girl, who was alone at a table by the bathroom waiting for the night crowd to pounce in. I wanted the girl badly enough, but I wanted to be discreet when it came to Charlene. If I took too long, and she saw I'd been drinking, then she was going to get one drink, so I thought I'd compromise with myself. "Hey," I said to the bartender, "let me ask you something." The bartender was a fat old redhead with an enormous bosom and a red wristband on her arm that said, "Mama of the bar." "If I wanted that new girl for only 20 minutes, what would you say?" "What do you mean, what would I say?" "I would say do whatever you like as long as you pay for it." "In terms of price reduction," I said, "what if I stuck to oral action and for only 20 minutes, then I pay you for half of it?" Mama ignored this, picked up a glass and wiped it down. Then she bent over and disappeared behind the counter, came back up with a condom and a blue wrapper she slapped down on the counter. "You're the kind of guy who keeps coming back." "For a while," I said, "I'll go through a phase." She shrugged and went down the bar to where a lonely fellow was sitting and scratching his knee rapidly and grinding his teeth together. So I took the girl upstairs. I had her undress for me and bend over on the bed so that she made a bridge of her back. And so I got on my knees and I licked her pussy from behind. She was silent. Because she was inexperienced, she didn't know that it helped if she were to moan a little, and to gyrate, and to tremble. You remember me from last week, I said. She wasn't a particularly dumb girl. There was something outwardly curious in her eyes, but when she spoke, she was short. Language wasn't where it was at for her. You have the knife, she said. There was something cute about the way she said it. She was so unsure of herself. As a way of tickling her, I reached up between her legs and jiggled one of her small breasts. It's the creeper blade, I told her. It's a special kind of knife. You won't use it. I use it all the time. But on me. I thought this was less funny. No, I said, not on you. I wasn't so sure what I wanted with her now. I was less turned on, and I was running out of time, so I undressed, left my trousers and my shirt in a corner on the floor, and I hung the creeper holster up on a chair. Then I took my naked body, now looking down on myself. I was doughy and pale. I still am. I stood on the bed and held my cock in a half-erect state, and I told the girl to get all the way on her knees. She did. I slapped it on her mouth. She knew enough to spread out her tongue. Could you moan, I said. Don't you remember? Last week you had it down. You want me to moan? Pretend you enjoy it. She thought for a moment. Then she licked the side of my cock and went, I do like it. All right, I said. You see how much better that is. She agreed. And what this turned out to be was a pleasant 8 minutes of oral action. When I came, it was on her nose, and I asked her to sit for a moment, so I could admire the jism I left hanging. I was getting dressed then. I was all ready to go. I need to ask you. This is what the girl said to me while I was putting on my pants. Go on and ask, I said. I'm not looking to get overcharged. This offended her, so I patted her on the head. Let me hold your knife. It's not a knife, I said. Your knife, she said. So I handed it over to her. She was a girl, I was soft. I wouldn't let a man hold the creeper blade. Of course, when I took it out of the holster, she was disappointed because the blade hadn't risen yet. Here, I said, and I grabbed it back from her. I'll show you. I told you before, it's not a knife. I extended my arm in her direction and manipulated the creeper blade so it rose slowly. I let the blade peek out, right at its angle. It came up this far. Then I spun on my heel and launched the creeper at the wall. The blade flung out and cut right into the surface. The girl was still naked, sitting on the floor. She got excited and rubbed her hands between her legs. Some women like the creeper blade, I said. Some don't. You like it, though. That's good. She wasn't playing with herself so much now, just touching the insides of her thighs. I was glad I showed her the knife. She was the kind of girl who could appreciate a fine blade. And I was getting excited and considering using that condom Mama had put on the bar. Then there was a knock on the door. It was Mama herself. All right, she said, 20 minutes. She saw the blade in the wall, and the tone changed. I don't want cup play in this establishment. There wasn't cup play, I said. Look at your girl here. Does she look like she's been cut up? She stomped across the room and picked up the girl by the arms, like she were a cat, and set her on the bed. She gave her a good examination. All right, she said. Next time you keep the blade in your holster, though. We all three of us looked at it, stuck in the wall. It had made a mouth in the wallpaper. Mama was satisfied with the girl's condition. As we were leaving, she told me I had a nice blade. I told her it was the creeper blade, custom made. I told her I was a knife man, which I was, but that I was responsible. Well, I'll see you around, knife man, she said. I told her my name was Julius Bench, and this was every bit true. The good news was that I had only been gone for a little over half an hour. Charlene wouldn't think I'd been up to my old perversions, which were current perversions. When I got into the office, she had her usher playing on the boombox, set on the windowsill. She was paging through a magazine. A lot of the time, I felt like I was paying my secretary to page through a magazine. All of the fashion magazines, magazines for shopping, and magazines for quilting, and also magazines for putting together scrapbooks. But today she looked up, and I knew that the afternoon hadn't been uneventful. Her eyes moved in her head from left to right. She lifted one of her big meaty hands and picked up a pen, and pointed to a pad of paper. There was some scribble on it. The scribble was writing. It said, Adelbrook, 365-284-7747. Did you see them? I said. Who stopped by? Charlene went on looking through her magazine, an article about Candace Bergen's infant that had suffocated in a locked car. It was a sappy story. I was tired of looking at it. A messenger, she said. Let me ask you something. If you left your baby to die in a car, would you come out to the public and ask for their sympathy? I picked a napkin and went into my office. What I told myself was that if this Adelbrook were a high-paying project, then I would take it. I wasn't going to do any night-by-night spy work. I was too all off at the moment for that. But a quick beating, those hard balls of dough, and the messenger, I liked that even though I was annoyed. I prefer horses' mouths, but the messenger meant money, and so I rang Adelbrook, and I asked for Adelbrook. Should I keep going? Okay. Some servant answered. She said, "Would you like Mr. or Mrs. Adelbrook?" "This is Julius Bench," I said, calling from Bench Private Worker. "Someone representing the Adelbrooks came to my office today while I was out." "Mr. Bench, Mrs. Adelbrook will be right with you." Within minutes, a woman with a fancy voice got on the phone and told me that I should come by as quickly as possible, and the address came to me before I had a pen to write it down. "You have to slow down," I said. "I'm not in the same state of urgency as you are." "It's important," she told me. "You'll be well paid." "I bet I will." "Now are you ready?" she said. "I don't see how you don't have a pen ready." I said, "Listen, man, if you keep up like this, we're not going to get very far. It has to be you who's cooperating with me." She took a deep breath on the other line. She was swallowing her pride. I was sure. And she gave me the address. She gave it to me twice, and she gave it to me slowly. "And please," she said, "come as soon as you can." Basically where I was going was to the upper crust part of town. Not exactly at the very top, but these people here in East Burlap, they were well-to-do. The bus let me off at a corner, and my instructions were to walk west for about 6 blocks until I got to a large white estate numbered 812. And when I went a-walking, these pretty houses, each and every one of them, with pillars and swimming pools, and the signs of the upper crust, of course, the circular driveways, and that was actually an exterior for the circular front lawn, a sign in its nucleus which read the name of the family. When I got to 812, I saw the sign. It was tasteful enough, though it was overdone. A plain white sign, Adelbrook, written in red cursive. Sure. But then beside the sign were 2 plastic figurines. A man and a woman, they were embracing, kissing, dressed in formal wear, a tuxedo and a gown. It showed the Adelbrooks were romantics. A female servant came to the door. She was a cute Spanish girl. I'm sure she was like for the neighborhood labor parties, or whatever they had. She gave me a little bow. She was dressed in a low-cut white top, not unlike a sexy nurse. She spun on her heel and led me into the estate. "It's nice," I told her. "The Adelhoffs are romantics." "That's right, isn't it?" She didn't like me so much now. She gave me this sneer that traveled up and down my body. But I had a point. They were romantics. On the other side of the entrance hallway, lines of portraits of angels, if you could call them angels. They were adult angels, and they were very sexy angels. Some of them had privates exposed. Some of them were women squatted over tall white monolithic structures, most of them in the night with powerful glowing moons. In the ground in every portrait was this fiery ocean of red. And in every portrait, there were 2 angels, a man and a female, and most of them with some sexual activity, a hand job, awkward or impossible intercourse, and cunnilingus, blowjobs. They were pseudo-primitivists. I followed her along, past angel after angel, until we got to the door at the end. Modest enough and wooden. This is when I admitted to her that I hadn't a clue what a pseudo-primitivist was. Never once had I heard of it. "I can't tell you," she said. "I don't know, but they are very open about their sex." "Their sex?" I said. "Well, all right." And I had nothing else to say about the matter. I was a bit more interested than I had been. "How about you?" I said. "Did they ever put you out in the open for the sex?" The servant giggled and blushed, and I kept an eye on the revealed top of her breast for the jiggling, and had a whip of pleasure. "No," she said. "They would never sell me." I took this as it was. She opened the door for me, and I went in. She didn't stick around, either. She closed the door behind me, and here I was in the living room. The Adelbrooks were before me, 3 of them, Mommy, Poppy, and adolescent daughter Adelbrook, and I had an idea now, looking at them. With that pretty servant, meant by a pseudo-primitivist, I had a notion.
Excerpts of a ongoing novel. I was raised in the deconstructionist school, so there doesn't have to be any linear narrative, you know what I mean? You guys are down with that, right?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Woohoo! The trick was to keep it a high speed. They can't detect you in the frequency moving that fast. Gotta move fast, keep it fast. You know, their minds are conditioned by cause and effect. Their sense of perception determined by spatial time relationships. Tyler and the gang had done away with that shit. It was one reason why Zack Snyder, in name of the society, saw Tyler as such an enemy. His mode of being undermined Zack's control, with the populace safety controlled by media symbols. Only an alternative perception could undermine the status quo. Tyler felt Leo Hopi coming in on the telepathic frequency. Leo now, in his tea ceremony, carefully grinding up the green leaves. He took such great care to make sure they were delicately broken up. Once done, he placed them in a teapot, and while they stewed, he played a Tao drum, invoking the old shamanistic spirits. When the tea had reached the right pitch, he poured it into a tiny cup. Before drinking up, he offered up a tiny prayer to the great spirits above, and with that done, he began the ceremony. Great attention was given to every detail. This was the nature of the tea ceremony. Its purpose was to bring the individual into oneness with the universe. See, Leo Hopi delivered the message of Wounded Knee. Part of the Radio Dream's message was to promote an alternative view of history, not his story. He told him about how the 7th Cavalry massacred innocent women and children. The Indians didn't get the message from the one who had the vision. Kicking Bear taught the ghost dance to Sitting Bull. The president in 1889 ordered the ghost dance to be stopped because it unified the tribes. The government slaughtered the Indians, tried to make them farmers and ranchers what stole their land. The agency was afraid of the Lakota people. They showed independence. In '59, they tried to stop the Sundance. December 29th, 1890. In 1929, the agency reversed the allotment of land. They obligated the land to the banks. On that day, it was 70 below, and the Creator was telling the world a sad thing was going down. A sad, sad thing going down. Mothers were killed while clutching their babies. Indian provided beans, corns, berries, coal, and silver. Cut. Radio Dream. I'm throwing it out because Dylan agrees with me now. You hear that, motherfuckers? You know Dylan bringing in the Emersonian moment. As translated through Thoreau, Whitman, Miller, Burroughs, Woody Guthrie meets Mark Twain with a little bit of Lewis Carroll thrown in, mixed over the Tin Pan Alley, which comes from the Russian immigrant Jews hustling tunes back at the beginning of the century. In other words, what I'm saying is that Dylan invented the confessional song as a profitable enterprise. In other words, the artist is subject, which descended from Emerson is translated through Guthrie, Reese, Steinbeck, but in the modern sense, James Joyce is the one who captures the aesthetic. In Joyce's world, the artist rejects the church and becomes the priest of the imagination. As the light fades away in the valley, a cat walks by the window. Lawrence Ferlinghetti reads Kerouac, and myth circulates through my brain. Is it dead, or is it being born? Art is a mean to expression. Now it seems like one big ego trip. The American industrial complex destroys poetry. The language returns now, though, past my paranoia, past the heat, past the piss test of the guard who checks that kind of stuff. And the light shines in the valley, the Tai Chi morning, the blood flowing in the veins, and John Hyatt on the radio, cars zooming by on the nameless highway, morning work, Radio Dream calling from atop a hill. Let's reinvent the distribution network. Let's let the information flow. An alienated movie shimmers through my bones, power structures abound. The trees, though, still cast the same shadows across the backyard. Let's remember that form follows function. Let's remember that, as Dee had gone insane with self-inspection and self-doubt, but it's okay now, because characters flow through his mind with what-if possibilities. Art is the invention of the artist's psychology. Time to write yourself into the movie.